We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday, and we have the good fortune of having a regular guest who's with us today. It is Tony from South Carolina. He's an old guy like me, maybe even a little older than me. It's hard to imagine. He's also a veteran. He does all kinds of stuff. And when he tells me about how active he is, I feel kind of ashamed, but only for a couple of minutes. I don't need to clean up a yard or do some of the things he's doing, but you took a nap earlier today, and now you have the energy to come back and do a
Yeah,
podcast. So
yeah,
kudos to you.
yeah. Mike and I talk well, offline, and I was telling him I have to do cleanup on my property because a storm got by and I got branches all on the ground and I can't mow with them. So, like Mike said, we're both old, and as I was doing cleanup and throwing branches in the back of my pickup truck, I fell out. I fell backwards out of it. I mean, in the old days, I was telling Mike that I could just put stuff in and jump out of the truck. And now I'm afraid to jump out because I'm afraid of breaking something. So I kind of like pop up a little bit and just try to hop out backwards after climbing down partially. Man, but nope, not this time. Right on my back. I felt foolish because I was hoping none of the neighbors would see me because there I'm laying on the ground just looking up in the sky.
Well, I think if I fell on my back off a truck, uh, the least I'd worry about is feeling foolish. I'd be feeling some other shit too.
Yeah, I was talking to a fellow today, and you're probably in the same position. Probably don't want to climb ladders anymore.
Not really. No, don't really have a.
You're okay with ladders?
Well, no, I know I don't. I don't want to climb ladders. I don't want to get up on anything. I told my wife this too. I said you can go buy whatever you want, but plan on paying to get it delivered because I'm not hauling anything at all. And when it comes to fixing anything in the house, I'm cool with that, but paying somebody to do it. I used to do a lot of that stuff when I was younger, and I'm not as agile as I once was, and because of my diabetes, I have a little bit, not too much, but some neuropathy in my feet,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
and
yeah.
that makes it hard for balance. So I have to be really careful.
Yeah, hey, audience, we'll get to politics soon. Let the two old guys bitch and moan a little bit about being old. I'm 70 this year, and Mike's just a little bit younger than I am.
Isn't that what old people do? They sit around at a Perkins going, "You think that's a fucking scar? You should see this." They're
That's
always,
exactly what we do. My wife now says, "Man, you're really getting fucking old. All you care about is like when we go someplace is the prices of things." She's not wrong. She's not wrong at all. We went to eat at Old Charlie's and it was $60 for just I don't know burger and some other stuff. So what are you gonna do? I mean, you get old. That's part of it.
I don't worry about the prices as much as I do what it's going to do to me later because my wife and I go out to dinner a lot because that's our social life. But
Yeah.
we got to be careful what we eat and what days we eat it and all that stuff because we can't just shovel anything down our gullets like we used to do. It's
No,
more
no.
a little more cautionary.
No, no, you're absolutely right. This was like a double classic cheeseburger, so two patties and all the rest. And afterwards, I felt sick. I can't handle. I hadn't had one of those in about a year, and now I know why. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah,
All right,
I,
audience,
I, I'm I'm experiencing something I've never experienced in my life when I go out to
what?
dinner. When I eat too much, I've never run into a situation when I was younger that I ate too much, but now it's happened with some regularity. So you just get old. You have to do some things. I probably shouldn't eat that much anyway, so it's a good thing. Um,
Yes,
but
this is
but the
the
bottom line is,
irrational.
Tony,
Go ahead.
uh, irrational bowel. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say instead of rational boomer.
Yeah, I saw where you were going with that. Well, now that we got the niceties of our personal injuries and our uh, bowel behaviors, we got that out of the way. We can start talking about some of the things at hand, and you almost have to laugh to not cry about some of the things that are going on. Uh, Donald Trump is such an embarrassment every day. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Totally, totally
We
embarrassment.
have a few things we're going to talk about, but I think we should bring up the meeting, the press conference he had with Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've talked about this many a time about him being embarrassed, but when he meets a foreign leader, either in the office or on travel, I just want to put a blanket over my head. I'm so ashamed of being an American at this point. And that meeting was another embarrassment. It was a major embarrassment. The prime minister, I mean, God bless him. He stood up for Canada, and good for him. Canada is not for sale. He made that really clear. And of course, Trump, being a narcissist, said, "Well, you never know." Yeah, we know. It's never gonna happen. Oh, you'll never know. You don't know what's gonna happen.
Never
They
say
would be
never.
never say never. They'll be so much better under the United States. No, they wouldn't. We all know the Canadians live better than the average U.S. citizen. They
Yeah.
just do. Other than they were in a frigid hell, cold place, where brown people like myself don't want to live. But other than that, there's no they would lose out on that. Later on, we got to talk about. He's about ready to make we'll talk about a little bit later about a thing about drugs and pharmacy prices. So we talked before we come on here what we're going to talk about, and that was one I really wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's the funny thing. The thing that frustrates me more than anything is the people around Donald Trump that aren't as stupid as Donald Trump and know very well what he's saying is fucking ridiculous, but they still stand by him. For example, um, Stephen Miller, that
Oh my
creepy,
God.
ghoulish looking
Oh
fuck.
my God.
Um, After Donald Trump did that press conference with Mark Carney, Miller said, "Oh, he put on just a master class." The motherfucker kept talking, wouldn't shut up. They didn't talk about the topic at hand. Mark Carney talked a few times, and even in those few times, he made Donald Trump his bitch. Donald Trump was an absolute joke in that situation.
Oh yeah, he made a fool of himself. He's ignorant of the trade situation. He's ignorant about what we get, what Canada provides to us. He thinks the U.S. can go along without Canada, and it's just a plain lie. I now think he's just stupid, and they just feed him information and trot him out. I used to think, well, maybe he's sly enough and he understands what he's doing. I don't know. I think when he's caught unprepared, he lies and he just makes
Yeah.
stuff up off the top of his head. But I really just think he's just plain stupid and diminished over where he was, say, I don't know, most of his life. He was never that bright, but he's definitely diminished now. And unfortunately, it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing when he talks just to reporters, but when he meets somebody that's so smart and so bright and so accomplished, and then he talks to him about something he knows nothing about, he just pulls shit out of his ass, and it's just this is not who should be representing us. And then you're right, and then his sycophants, kiss his ass and tell him how well he did. When he had the debate with Kamala Harris, they told him he won the debate, and he got his head handed to him.
Yeah.
And it just truly is a bad time. But the only good thing is you and I both follow everything closely. It does seem the tide is slowly turning against him.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, uh, time is near that things are going to fall apart. I just want to, speaking of falling apart, and we're talking about the Chinese tariff thing. That's an imminent catastrophe. Weeks off, maybe a week off. But Donald Trump, kept saying, "Yeah, we're having talks with China." Then China would say, "We're not talking to them at all." So we know Donald Trump was lying. We know that China is pretty much saying, "Fuck yourself. We can't trust you. It doesn't do any good to negotiate with you." And Donald Trump keeps saying, "Well, I'm waiting for him to call." And something happened yesterday. Maybe it was today. Um, we heard about a meeting set up with Scott Bessent and China. Now, this meeting isn't to negotiate the tariffs. It's to negotiate a meeting to negotiate the tariffs. It's a preliminary thing.
That's right.
But but
That's right.
Donald Trump is so fucking petty. Um, he insists that China call him so he can look like, well, they came begging to me. Donald Trump is really big on that. Scott Bessent said, "Well, I initiated this meeting, this preliminary meeting to set up further meetings." And it was mentioned to Donald Trump, and he was taken aback. He did not like the fact that one of his people initiated talks because he thought it would make them look weak. Well, China was just going to let them fucking rot on the line on the vine, and so it's going to be interesting to see what Donald Trump does with Scott Bessent and with the Chinese, and how he further fucks that up, because they need to talk. But even if they talked and settled something today, we're still 2 months being fucked because of the
Oh,
supply chain.
oh yeah. Well, first of all, Scott Bessent wants out, so he'll
Well, he
probably
should
be
have got
out.
out a long time ago.
He shouldn't have been in. He's smart enough. I mean, he's a billionaire for a reason, and he knew why anybody would work for the Trump administration. I don't know, but you're right. He's going to lie about it. But you know what? The Chinese don't really need us. They're
No.
signing trade agreements around the world, bilaterals, multilaterals, European Union stuff, and little by little by little, anything we do here, they're replacing, and they're willing to absorb the losses that they'll have. I don't know how, but they don't care about their population very much. If a couple of their small businesses that manufacture toys go out of business, they don't really care about that. They're keeping their eye on the big prize. They're dumping. They're not yet dumping our treasury bills, but they are replacing or trying to replace the U.S. dollar as the world's currency. And I think they're going to. I don't know what would replace it: the euro, the yen, the yuan. I just don't know the peso. So I think that's the only problem. I don't think that the world is ready to take the Chinese currency as the world yet, but it's close, and certainly they're starting to leverage their soft power to tell people don't sell us and buy our goods with U.S. dollars. So some of this is going back to the smart guys on Wall Street and getting back to Trump through investments and things like that. But Trump don't care. I mean, everything I've read, everything I've heard, over the last 2 weeks is he just doesn't care. He knows he's not going to get elected again. He doesn't care. He's gonna go his way, and no one can stop him. And unfortunately, Congress is the only place to stop him. But the Chinese are in a position of strength. We are. You said it before. We are a week to 2 weeks of goods not showing up. The last goods from China that were pre-tariff have already arrived in LA. They've been unloaded. They are on the shelves right now. The next set coming in on ships, there are ships only half full, and this is the tariff stuff. And the small businesses, which are in the hundreds here in the United States that have ordered this stuff, are basically not going to take possession. They can't afford it. They can't
Right.
afford to pay. One lady, for example, said that her bill for the same level of goods, couple pallets or whatever she makes, went up 200,000. Can't afford it, and so she's out of business. She's out of
Right.
business, and she may lose her house because her house is leveraged for her business. And this is going to be repeated all over. Yeah, China doesn't need us, and I don't know if he's going to. I don't know what he's going to do, to be honest, because he's stubborn. He's just going to keep lying to us, and maybe the Chinese don't let him off the hook. Which, to be honest, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they don't set up a meeting and just let things go the way they're going to go. That they take their pain, but we're going to take a lot more pain. I think, frankly, that's a smart move on their part.
Well, and it's the only move they have because, like I said, nobody wants to negotiate with Donald Trump because nobody can count on what he says. Nobody can trust what he says. They're talking about all these deals and when they're going to be done. And then Donald Trump in this press conference says, "I don't know why people always ask me when the deals are going to be done. We don't care. We don't need anything from Canada. We don't need anything from anybody," which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, you mentioned security bonds. And you mentioned China with security bonds. Well, Japan has already rattled some sabers. They said, "You don't fucking treat us with respect, we're going to liquidate all our security bonds to the tune of $1 trillion, which would absolutely tank the American economy."
Yeah,
Now,
I
how
don't
does
think that.
Donald Trump take that? How does Donald Trump take that, though? He looks at it as a threat, and Donald Trump doesn't act well to threats.
No,
He's
no,
going to double down.
yeah, he may double down, but I think wiser heads will get to him. If they tank the cost of the dollar, it's going to cost us more to borrow money, right? Because we always run in the red when we do budgets and things. That's why we issue treasury bonds. So now it's going to cost us a lot more money at higher interest rates to issue out our bonds, and less people are going to take them. So he's putting us in a position of having the default, which is what I think he will do. What I understand is that he likes debt, because if he defaults, then whichever banks he dealt with before would say, okay, you defaulted on $100 million. Well, he'll say, well, I'm just not going to pay you, and they can take him to court, and he's got a jigger that they're not going to get any money. So then he renegotiates the loan for pennies on the dollar, and that's just been his MO forever.
Yeah.
He thinks you can do that with treasury bonds and debt to other countries. It doesn't work that way, but that's
No, it
what he
doesn't.
thinks. And so I think we may end up, if we end up in a default, from what I understand, and I'm no economist, and is that from the smart economists, if we default, that may put us in a part of a depression rather than just a recession, because the repercussions are so horrible if we default on our loan. Do I know that for a fact? No, but I've heard this on 2 or 3 other podcasts that have had economists on there, so I don't know.
Well, there's something else that happened yesterday that will no doubt pissed off Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will be on Truth Social whining about it. Um, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, came out. Now, Donald Trump is desperate for him to drop the interest rates because it would kind of supercharge the economy and cover up some of the things he's already fucked up. And when the economy gets worse, they typically do drop the interest rates. Well, Jerome Powell came out and said, no, we're holding steady. We're not moving them up. We're not moving them down. We're not moving them at all. And the reason they're saying is because of the uncertainty.
That's
The
right. That's
uncertainty
right.
of what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen. And that is Donald Trump's fault. He loves the chaos, he says. So there's chaos. And now the Fed chair does not want to lower interest rates, which is going to piss off Donald Trump. It's going to be interesting to see how he reacts. I mean, he was talking about firing him before. We find out he can't fire him, but he was still talking about it. Then the wealthy people around him got him to back off of it because they said, you dumb fuck, you want to just sink the whole country? Um, they pushed him back on that. But we've got so many other things. You would hope that some of these wealthy people who understand what's wrong, like Scott Bessent or some of these other people, you're fucking things up. It's going to come. It's imminent. You got to do something. But apparently they're not, or Donald Trump isn't listening.
Yeah, I just don't understand. These are, the masters of the universe, and
Yeah.
they can see that he's cost them a lot of money. And I
Yeah.
don't know why. I don't really understand why they're afraid of him. If they were to all get together, what's he going to do? To be honest, I guess they're afraid that he's going to turn law enforcement on them, that he's going to do investigations, that that they'll lose more than money somehow, some way. That's the only thing I can think of, is just that he's bullied them into the position of being quiet and just not following what he wants them to do. It's just he's done this across the board. Now, does he do it by himself? No, he's got smart people telling him, like Stephen Miller, and he's pushing through because he can stay ahead of the courts, and so long as he has the levers of power in law enforcement and all the various committees and commissions that he has, it looks like they're going to shut their mouths. I was listening to, oh man, he used to be on NBC. I can't think of his name. He was a journalist, and he left, and now he's got a podcast. God damn, I can't think of his name. But NBC, CBS, all of them have bowed down to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of hanging tough together, and what he was saying was that the AP getting kicked out the way they got kicked out of the press room was the first indication that he was probably going to get kicked out of NBC himself, and he wasn't. And he wasn't wrong. So we don't have that. We don't have that media like we used to, because we're all under corporate control. And once again, it's all the billionaires and millionaires who control everything. I just don't. I will never understand why they're putting up with this shit. They don't really need he needs them. They don't need him. And they can weather anything that's get thrown at them because they have an army and battery of lawyers to protect them and cushion them and keep everything out in the future. And he doesn't have presence of mind to stay on any one topic for any length of time anyway.
Yeah. You know what I'm concerned about? When you put people in the position we're in now, the people in this country that are terrified, the oligarchs are losing money and they're terrified. They're afraid to do anything toward Donald Trump, as you said, because they might call the military or something. People all around the world are angry with him. He's going to go to the Middle East here next week. When you're in a situation like this, when you've got no place to turn and you're too afraid of the retribution that Donald Trump might mete out to people who push back at him, this seems to me, and this isn't wishful thinking because I don't want this to happen, but this seems like a time that's ripe to put Donald Trump in danger. If that's the only option to stopping this, there are plenty of people out there with a lot of money, a lot of investments, and a lot of anger against Donald Trump who are too afraid to step up to him face to face, to come up from behind, if you will. And I don't know how that happens, but I think people believe that Donald Trump, while he's flapping his mouth, he is a danger. So the goal is to stop flapping the mouth, and there's only one way to do that. I hope that doesn't happen because then that makes him a martyr. But I got to think he's putting himself in that position.
I think every president goes through this because he's bitterly hated by us.
Wait,
There's
wait,
no
wait,
doubt
wait,
about
wait,
it.
wait a minute. No president has gone through what Donald Trump's
No,
going
no, no,
through
no,
because no
no.
president has done this.
I mean being in danger. When Obama was president, he was in danger. Well, he would particular was in danger. When Clinton was in office, he was in danger. I think they're protected enough by the Secret Service. I personally don't see it. I think the way forward is not going to be hoping that he gets knocked off, though I don't think a lot of people would shed tears, is the
No.
fact that we're seeing mass demonstrations across the country and across the world against him. And we're seeing an attack on one of the centers of gravity, which is the Republican Party. And so the Republican Party has the ability to take away his tariffs control. They have the ability to impeach him and remove him from office. If they wanted to, they could, joining with the Democrats. So they won't do anything unless they're afraid. But right now, they're starting to get afraid because I'm seeing a lot of head counting, and it doesn't look good for them in the midterms. And people will say, well, they'll cheat in the midterms. They can only do so much cheating because the midterms, the system is so broad, so wide, so diversified. Yeah, you might be able to cheat in a town. I don't know that you can really totally cheat in the state. Look at North Carolina. They tried to cheat that Supreme Court judge in North Carolina out of her seat, and she was only leading by 700, and they were trying to get 60,000 votes. They lost, and I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think we're at that point where they're dangerous. They've damaged the country, but I don't think they're coup dangerous. Not yet, though they are pushing the levers of power as much as they can. I just don't see it. There's been too much pushback lately that kind of leads me to believe that we are going to have an election in 26 and we're going to have an election in 28. And that's what I see as of right now. I don't see them. Will there be some trickery and will there be some shenanigans? Oh, sure there will. I mean, will it before 26? Will he try to stop the election? Maybe. But I don't see it. There's only so much more that they can do. They're doing a lot of stuff that's illegal, but that stuff's all not coup stuff. That's stuff that's Project 2025 stuff.
Well, he's tried a lot of stuff and he's lost in
Yeah.
court time and time again. I think there will be an election in 2026. The one thing I always stood by was that Donald Trump will fuck up so bad that the Republicans will finally say enough is enough and take him out of office. I still think they will do that, but God damn it, I had never imagined it would take this long and allow him to do this much damage. This shows an incredible amount of cowardice on the Republican side. They're going to have to because they are seeing what's happening. I mean, you can try to cheat an election, but you're only really going to be able to get away with that if the elections are close. And if it
That's
keeps
right.
going the way it is, these elections won't be close. They
Yeah,
won't be fucking close.
listen, if you're going to cheat an election, you're not going to do it at the local level. I've met a lot of election people, and they're pretty honest. And you could put a MAGA person at a polling station. That's one MAGA person. I mean, it's too broad of a conspiracy. If you were going to steal the election, you would have to steal it through the court somehow and get a bunch of votes thrown out, which they're going to do. They're doing that now. But in the end, people are so pissed off, and we haven't really even begun to suffer yet. The suffering
No,
is still
no,
a
definitely
couple
not.
of weeks away. This Christmas, I mean, he didn't help himself with the whole doll situation. Well, they can only buy two dolls; they'll be a little bit more expensive. That didn't help. That went over like a lead balloon. So this Christmas, if you can't buy stuff from Hasbro, for example, who was the biggest toy maker in the country, and it's a really shitty Christmas, and there's no money, and inflation's way up, and unemployment's got to rise. I don't know why it hasn't risen yet. The numbers are still good, but by Christmas, it's all going to be terrible. And now that's that much closer to the 26th, and the Republicans are going to be cowering. If they wanted to save their jobs, if it gets as bad as we all think it's going to get, they should impeach him. If they had the balls and impeached him, and their senators went along with removing him from office, that would be the best thing they could do for their own party. Because he doesn't care one bit about the Republican Party.
No, he doesn't. Something happened, and Old Soul asked me about this, and I took a wild guess on this. Um, we know that John Ossoff is up for reelection in the Senate in
Yeah,
Georgia, right?
right.
And there was talk of Marjorie Taylor Greene running against him. I'm thinking, please let Marjorie Taylor Greene run against him. But then there was some talk that the the, uh, uh, that the Georgia governor would Kemp would run against him, and that gave us a little more concern because Kemp, I don't know if you call him a moderate, but he's seemingly normal, more
Yeah,
normal than a Trump
he's
fuck. Of course,
he's
so is
popular
this.
in Georgia.
Yeah, he's popular in Georgia, and he could possibly win the Senate. He's better than most MAGA fucks because he's not sociopathic, psychopathic, and schizophrenic. He's
Yeah, yeah.
relatively normal in that sense. But then it was a big surprise. He says, "I'm not going to run for the U.S. Senate." And somebody said, "Why would he do that? Why would he do that?" And my theory on this is this: come 2028, they're going to need to somebody that's reasonably normal that could possibly win for the Republican Party. And there aren't many options out there. And he may be the best option as a relatively moderate or normal Republican after all this MAGA shit falls apart. And he doesn't want to lose an election 2 years before he has to take the presidential election. He doesn't necessarily want to be the senator if he wants to be the president. He can't run for the governorship again. I may be
Oh,
imagining
yeah.
this, but that seems to make sense.
No, you're on point. That's exactly why he's not running. Some people said it's a big fuck you to Donald Trump, and that he wanted to do that, but nobody does it just like that. You always serve your self interest.
Yeah.
That's exactly where he's at. He knows he was popular in Georgia. He's got a record to run on as a conservative. He'd be a tough opponent in 28. Now, would he get through a primary? Yeah, if it's Senator Cruz and the usual suspects. I don't know who else would run for office at that point, but he would have a good chance. He's not stained with the MAGA. He's a old fashioned conservative Republican whose policies, by the way, we despise. I mean, in the old
Yeah.
days, we would despise this guy for running, right? We would bitterly hate him. But in retrospect and in comparison to what we have now, you could almost live with 4 years of a Kemp presidency if you had to. God forbid if that ever happens.
Well, I've said it
But
before. I said it before that I thought George W. Bush was the dumbest president in the history of this country. Now I kind of miss him. I kind of miss
I,
George W.
yeah, I mean, the fact is, I mean, let's not whitewash Bush. Bush sent us to Iraq, and he sent us to Afghanistan. He screwed up, totally screwed up Afghanistan. Got a bunch of us and a bunch of Iraqis killed. He was a terrible president.
He was.
Yes, was he a likable guy? He was a likable guy, but he was a terrible president. He made tremendous mistakes, and frankly, I've seen where he's ranked, and I'm not sure why he's ranked as high as he is. I don't remember him doing very much of anything during his time there. He certainly did close the budget. His policy, No Child Left Behind, is a failed policy. He got us into two wars. He was a mess. And yes, he was stupid, and not Trump stupid, but he was stupid. Trump will be at the very, very bottom of the presidential pile, but Bush should be maybe 10 up from him.
Yeah. So you're getting. I've gotten this feeling too, and people always say to me, "You're always talking about hope, and you're a Pollyanna about stuff," and I don't see that. I try to look at things realistically, and I do try to find hope because I know no matter how bad this is, being as old as we are, we've been through bad times.
We
We
have.
know we always come out the other side. That's
We do.
inevitable. We're going to come out the other side. It's just how and when and what it will be like. But I am seeing Republicans getting a little hinky out there, not knowing what to do. They're going to town hall meetings, getting just eviscerated.
Crushed. They're getting
They're
crushed.
getting crushed. And they can try to say it's all Democrats, but Jesus Christ, the Democrats don't have time to go to the town halls because they're protesting in the fucking streets. So it's Republicans, and they can't deny it's Republicans. Um, we've got this whole thing with this big, beautiful bill, this budget bill. They were all excited about, yeah, we're going to cut it. No, we're not cutting Medicaid, but the Democrats did the job and keep it in the narrative. Yes, you
They
are, and
did.
here's how you're doing it. And now Republicans are going, well, wait a minute. I don't know that we should do this. This could be a problem. I don't, all these wealthy people voted for Donald Trump for one reason, to get a tax break.
That's
And
right.
now I don't know they can get it out of this bill. They still may not get that fucking tax break, and then go through all the stuff where they're getting their ass kicked in the stock market and the tariffs and stuff. These oligarchs may have fucked themselves big time.
Yeah, they did. Well, there's two things here. First of all, there's about 10 to 15 moderates that are saying, no, we're not doing this. We need cuts, but you're not taking it all out on Medicaid. We've got too many
Right.
constituents that need Medicaid. So there's a bunch there. But the second part of that is if they fail to do any kind of tax bill, which I'm hoping, the last tax cuts that he pushed through when he was in office last time, those go away. Everybody's taxes are going to go up. Who do you think is going to get the blame for that? It'll be the Republicans who get the blame for tax
Yeah.
raise. So they'll probably have to come up with something, but I'm not completely sure what they'll come up with. But $980 billion out of Medicaid. No one's, I think we just need to keep an eye and make sure that people understand when they say give it back to the states, they're really saying we're gonna cut Medicaid spending, and we're gonna throw millions of people off of healthcare. And if people don't understand that, they're too stupid to understand that, then fuck them. I mean, there's not much you can do about it, because the states cannot pay, 80% of Medicaid. So the last plan I heard was that now they're trying to sell where they go back to the federal government paying 60 to 70% of the Medicaid costs instead of the current 90%. And then the states only have to pick up 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still going to throw a lot of people. I think that the CBO came out with their
Right.
report. So the Congressional Budget Office came out and basically said, no matter how you cut it, it's going to be millions of people losing their health care. The CBO is not. Now, will they go around the CBO? Yeah, if they want it bad enough, they'll just ignore it. But at least now the Democrats have something, official in writing that they can say, look, we know, because here's the CBO report. that this is going to cost you your Medicaid. If you're fine with that, well, then go ahead and support your congressman or your senator. If you're not fine with it, then you need to do something else. So that's where we're at. And so I think the big bill is dead. And if it's dead, and it could end up with a tax rate, which is bad for me and you. I don't want to
Yeah.
pay more in taxes, to be honest with you. But maybe that's the price for adding more fuel to the fire against the Republicans, in the next couple of years.
Well, unfortunately, I think, as I've said recently, I never wanted to believe this, but in order for us to be done with MAGA and Donald Trump, we're going to have to suffer through a catastrophe. We're going to have to suffer through an economic catastrophe or maybe something worse, a terroristic catastrophe. I mean, we've talked about this. You're former military. I think I asked you this before. Based on what we've heard with Pete Hegseth and the Signal Gate and all these other things, I feel like this country has very little, if any, national security, which is a frightening thing for a country this big and as many things going on. If we don't have national security, we are vulnerable for some serious shit.
Yeah, where we're hurting is in the decision making. What are the priorities for the military to do something, make a strike, um, defense, how many troops we're going to have in Europe. That's where we're hurting. Our military is still first rate. Now we have issues. We're not building enough ships. We can't build them because we don't have the infrastructure for it. But we still have a pretty strong military. And I'd like to think that, given an illegal order, that they won't follow through. But the decision making, starting with the Department of Defense, the national command authorities is the president. I believe it's the National Security Advisor, and it is the Department of Defense. So they make the decisions to do anything that's warlike. And we're weak across the board with all of them. I mean, right now, Rubio, I think, is the National Security Advisor. So
Yeah.
he's got some experience. I don't think we're hurting there, but there's no way of doing that job, State Department job, and I think he's got one other job as well. So between him, Hegseth, and Trump, those are the people who can order us to do something militarily. And it's two out of the three are tremendously weak and ineffective. And then Steve Miller supposedly has a play in this as well. According to
I
the
heard,
Signal chat, go ahead.
yeah, I heard they were talking about making him the national security advisor, which would be fucking ridiculous. But it's not surprising since Donald Trump now wants to put a social media influencer as uh, the what am I saying? The medical
Press.
general. Well,
Yeah. You're talking about, yeah, that
attorney general.
attorney
No, not
general,
attorney general. Not attorney general.
surgeon general,
Surgeon general.
surgeon general.
A
Yeah,
fucking influencer. Why don't you
it's
put
it,
me in charge of HUD?
yeah,
Because, fuck, I live in a house.
it's a total shit show out there. It's. I mean, we can't fix it. Listen. There's something to be said about just letting them, uh, create their own mess up there. Carville was not wrong with that, but we can't just let them fall apart. We also have to push them into the hole that they're digging for themselves, right?
Right.
So you can't be passive. And putting Nazi Miller in charge. I mean, can you see that? I mean, he looks like he would be a great Nazi villain in any old World War II movie from the '60s, like the Devil's Brigade, or any of those things. I mean, you can put he looks like he would be just talking to the Fuhrer and stuff. That guy is fucking as evil as they come. But if he puts him there, the decision making gets even worse.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
likely to put us into a situation of doing something bad. Trump's instincts for fighting a war, he seems to be afraid to do something like that. So I don't know. I have during his first term, he did the usual stuff, attacks on terrorists and stuff. But as far as actually invading or doing something big with the military, he seems to be afraid to do any of that.
The thing about it is America always has influence in possible wars around the country and diplomacy and such. A couple of things going on right now that are troubling. Um, a lot of people on the left didn't like what Joe Biden was doing with the Gaza war. So they voted him out. They put in Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been doing little or nothing with that situation. And Israel just announced, the Israeli cabinet just announced that they're just going to take over Gaza completely. And what's Donald Trump saying about it? Donald Trump's not, he's too fucking busy
Nothing.
with all this, with
Uh,
dolls and shit. He's not saying anything about it. Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have the option to do whatever he wants. And that's what we said
yeah,
about taking Joe Biden out of it. Joe Biden kept Netanyahu in check. Donald Trump said, do what you want.
yeah. No, we knew that. I mean, when Trump put out about Gaza having hotels and stuff like that, he basically was signaling to the Israelis to take this over. Taking that, there's not much. I mean, it kind of destroyed the cities and the towns. And people are living in tents and things, but it's still a population that needs to be pacified. I don't
Right.
know. It might, for a year, they might be able to contain, the sentiment, but go another year past that when the population there no longer, is being fed and arms are being stuck in, there's going to be problems for Israel. It's never, they've got the same problem we had with Iraq. They're gonna try to pacify a hostile population that doesn't want them there. It's going to result in a lot of killings and death and stuff, but the, there's going to be massacres on both sides. I don't know why. Well, Netanyahu just wants to stay in power. This is one way for him to continue, stay in power. That there's still a need for the, military, and there's still a need for martial law. So therefore, he stays to control that. And okay, wait till the bodies start coming back. It's one thing to fight and be able to kill people with aircraft and drones and stuff like that. It's another to patrol streets and keep a population from attacking your soldiers or making terrorist attack back into Israel. So I don't think Gaza will ever be a part of without tremendous cost on the part of Israel.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we got the Russia-Ukraine war. Donald Trump said he could wrap that baby up in about 24 hours. Not working so well. JD Vance came out yesterday and says, it seems like Russia is demanding too much, which is weird because they were siding with Russia. They went to Ukraine. Ukraine worked out some deals. We'll talk about the mineral deal in a minute. But it sounds like Ukraine gave something to Donald Trump to go back to Russia, and then of course Russia comes back and it's never enough. Oh, big surprise! You should have known that before you became butt buddies with the motherfucker. You knew
Yeah,
he wasn't going to be helpful. And Donald Trump's biggest concern here is he doesn't give a shit about the fighting. He doesn't care about people dying. He wants to end this thing, get the glory, get the Nobel Peace Prize. That's all he gives a fuck about.
I think it'll be the Peace Prize, and then it doesn't surprise me if he's got a piece of the mineral wealth action for the Trump organization. Maybe not him, but maybe his sons. Um, I will say that I've been following this war for as long as it's been on. It seems Ukraine is doing very well now. They're holding their own. I I I I, I read something or I saw something the other day. Um, they have probably the best drone command in the world right now. The
Yeah.
most drones, the most diversified group of drones. So what they're running, and the drones are in different commands, so they're in different units. They are actually running a game with their drone operators where they give points to however many Russians they kill. And so if you kill a Russian, it's like a 2 pointer or 6 point, or went up to 6 points. If you kill a tank, it's worth 30 points. If you only disable a tank, it's worth 15 points. And so what they're doing is they actually have like a game board where all these commands and activities that have drones and some kind of drone resource with them are competing, and the winners get, I believe they get more like money and resources to buy more and better drones or something like that. So they're not winning. I don't know that they're giving individual monetary prizes to the soldiers that are operating these drones. But it's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. First of all, it it gives great morale to the people who are operating these drones. So we're at the point where artillery used to control the battlefield. Now it's drones. You make an attack, you're going to get a drone swarm on you somehow, some way. Both sides are doing it. But now there's camaraderie for the Ukrainians to do this. Number two, it's killing a lot of Russians and killing a lot of Russian equipment. And then number three, as they do this, they're getting to test a lot of new types of drones and new concepts. They now have wheeled drones that will go in and rescue a casualty. So the casualty will jump on a drone that's wheeled, and it will bring them back. So they don't have to send a medic out to transport it. So it's absolutely brilliant where this war, where no other country in the world, except for maybe the Russians, have an understanding of how this has changed warfare. But from Trump's point of view, Putin kind of pissed him off. I think in his mind, he made him look bad. And Trump doesn't like to look bad. And Trump is now feeling he's feeling he put his big boy pants on. And he's not looking at Putin as his Lord and Master anymore. He's looking at Putin as just a fellow, leader of a country. And he's going, well, fuck you, Putin. You embarrass me. You made me look stupid. And so now I think Ukraine just got a $50 million loan for equipment. That $50 million is not a lot in terms of warfare, but it's $50 million could buy a lot of bullets. Maybe not so much artillery shells. So with all the help, they're starting to stabilize everything. And I understand they attacked back into Kirks again, either yesterday or today. And something has shifted. The United States is back in the ball game of supporting, but I don't think it's because we're doing it because it's the right thing. We're doing it because it advances Trump's interests.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it is that Donald Trump thought Vladimir Putin was his buddy. We all knew he wasn't his buddy. Now Donald Trump is pushing back because Donald Trump's emotional and reactionary. You wonder if there is a dime to drop by Vladimir Putin if he does that, if it gets hairy enough between the two of them that Vladimir Putin
tape.
starts pushing back against Trump.
We want the pee-pee tape.
I don't really want to see it, but I like to get it out there.
Yeah, I want it out. Yeah, I want it out like the Epstein tapes. I don't want to see it. I want them out there. We've all heard that Trump was an operative, that he was recruited in and whatever his Russian call sign was. So there's probably a long paper trail on that, but I don't know. Even if he released it, it would damage Trump, but it also damages the Russians as well. That they had a program for getting wealth because Trump knows some shit too. Trump probably knows other people that were in the same position he was, other oligarchs. So I don't know. I don't know that if we haven't seen anything yet, I don't know that we're going to see anything from the Russians unless they're losing. Putin said the other day that they're considering or will consider the use of nuclear weapons if things get too bad. It's the same threat he makes all the time. But it wouldn't surprise me there are tactical nuclear weapons that are the size of a briefcase. They're nuclear. They'll take out a city block. But if you got 100 of those things, you can take out, you can take out positions and you can take out formations and things like that. And then they can say, well, look, we're not using the big ones. We're just using the small ones for a tactical advantage. No different than using a bunch of cruise missiles and some bombs. So I don't know. But I think you're right. I think they have stuff on Trump, but I'm not completely assured that they would release it. I hope they would, because that would give the Republicans in Congress the ammunition they would need to get rid of this son of a bitch.
Well, they have to be willing to do what the Republicans do, and I think they're getting closer to that. But I think ultimately, when this is all said and done, as is so much the case with narcissists, when they go into their spiral, which I feel like he's in now, and when he crashes, it is catastrophic. I mean, shit comes out. What happens when the tide turns and all these people that were following him, once the moment happens where they can monkey pile on this motherfucker, everybody's jumping. There'll be shit coming out. There'll be he'll be a joke. He'll be a pariah. That day will come for Donald Trump because he's only got so much time. Um, and whether the Russians put it out or not, there's enough here in this country of people exposing that motherfucker to everything from crimes to sexual deviancy. That shit's
Yeah,
coming.
you're absolutely right. You listen, you are absolutely right. What's going to happen is that the pendulum is going to shift between probably 26, 28. And if we get the right kind of man in office or a woman in office, um, I think I think people are going to go to jail. I
Oh,
think
absolutely,
they don't. I
absolutely.
don't think they're going to put a Merrick Garland in. I mean, I don't know that us, the blue people, will elect another Biden. I just don't. I don't think so. I think we will elect somebody with some fire in the belly. I don't think it'll be a Buttigieg. I think, to be honest, if I had to pick today, I would be Pritzker. That would be my guy.
Yeah,
And I think
Pritzker
he's
would be
a
the guy.
billion. Yeah, I think he's a billionaire. He'll go in and he's going to find a junkyard dog to put in as attorney general. They're going to have to rebuild the Justice Department. But then the Stephen Millers and the Hetzeks and all the rest of the boys, girls, I think they're going to be investigated. They don't have immunity. He might have immunity, but they won't. This whole thing with this whole scheme with Bitcoin. Uh, I mean, it's highly illegal, right? It's highly
Yeah.
corrupting. Selling, a stay in the White House to get access to them for however many millions of dollars. That's illegal. Now, will the Supreme Court, this current Supreme Court, think that, or will they say that he was just in keeping with the office of the president? I don't think so. If nothing else, he's definitely going to be damaged. He's going to be old. He's going to be dribbling in his diaper probably by the end of those 4 years. I'm not completely sure he'll make it. He's looking bad. Um, but there's a lot of people that will probably be investigated, and there will be a lot of people that will go to jail. And names that we don't know. Somebody set up this Bitcoin thing for him, and they better be out of this country because that is corruption and it's in very definition of corruption. So we will see.
Well, I read something that Donald Trump's little special Bitcoin that came out. Um, somebody pointed out that if you invested $13,000 into Donald Trump's Bitcoin, his meme coin, if you and this was just a month or two ago, if you invested in his meme coin and put $13,000 in it today, it's worth $350. People took a fucking bath on that motherfucking thing.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
unbelievable. As far as people going to jail, I think top of the list is Elon and his little techno twinks with him because
I
what they did is
I
highly,
totally agree.
they're gone.
Yes.
They
Yeah. Yes. I agree.
and it's
I agree.
just
I think. Go ahead. I'm waiting on you.
no, I'm just saying Elon's rest of Elon's life is not going to be good. Tesla's going to tank.
No.
There's no way to bring that back. He's going to be investigated. He may be deported. He may be jailed, but Elon's in for a lot
Yeah.
of shit.
Yeah. He is, and all the 20-year-olds that were working for him. Yeah, they're going. They got access to things that they shouldn't. Um, we're talking hundreds of people are going to be investigated. People we don't know. We don't know their names, but they did stuff working in this administration that was
Right.
highly suspect. And I, none of this. The mood on TikTok, and let's just say TikTok, is none of this. Well, we need to heal bullshit. No, we don't need to heal. We need justice is what we need. And I think this audience that listens to you, I think they're going to feel the same way. We want justice, no fucking healing, no forgiveness, none of that shit. Might not be able to get Trump, but we might be able to get his vice president. We might be able to get his national security advisor. We might be able to get Pam Bondi. Pam
Yeah.
Bondi, what's his name, Holtz or whatever his name is, in charge of immigration. All of these people,
Bowman,
I
yeah.
personally, yeah, the whole fucking kit and caboodle of them probably should be sent to El Salvador. They won't get that, but if they're sent to a prison here in the United States for a couple years or 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is, uh, that's justice. That's not. Now I'm vengeful. If all they can get is 3 years, then I wish it could be 15.
Yeah.
But I think most blue people feel that way, and until the national Democrats get with it, we're still having our civil war. I mean, it's a civil war in the Democratic Party right now, and the Chuck
Yeah, no question.
Schumers, those guys are gonna go away. So what that means is the next set of elections, I think they're going to be mostly fighters and not pussies.
Well, given that, we've got a little test for the House of Representatives, because you'll remember when AOC was running to be the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, Nancy
I do.
Pelosi and some of the older establishment people said, no, no, we can't do that. We're going to put Jerry Connolly in, Representative Jerry Connolly. Now, Representative Connolly's a fine guy. I have no complaints about him, but he was just getting over cancer and he was an old white guy. This was a chance to put a younger woman, somebody that is going to be around in the future and should have some impact. Well, they blew her out and put in this Jerry Connolly. Now, Jerry Connolly just had a reoccurrence of cancer and he's stepping aside. AOC, not sure that she would even run for that ranking membership
Yeah, I don't think
in
she's
the
in that
oversight.
committee anymore. I'm not
But
sure she's in that committee anymore.
you know who said she's running?
What's her name from
Jasmine
Texas?
Crockett. Jasmine
Desmond
Crockett.
Crocker. Yeah,
This is a fucking
yeah.
test. You better do it now. Do it this time. Get
What's?
her in
Yeah,
there.
I don't
She's a
know.
perfect person.
The other person running, oh, she's an 80-year-old. I can't think of her name. She's from California. She's been in Congress, forever. Um, we'll see. It is a test because the 80-year-old is going to say it's my turn. She's never been a committee chairperson, um, but she's the same thing as Connolly. She's way past her way past her sell by date, So we will see. Now, Jasmine Crockett is a fireball.
She
I
is.
don't. I like her. I don't know that she's as good as AOC. I don't think she's as polished as AOC. So if she doesn't get it, I'm okay, just as long as they don't give it to some 90-year-old or whatever. I mean, this lady's like mid-80s. Don't give it to somebody like that. But if they have a congressperson in there, he's 60-ish, been around a little bit. I can see that because Jasmine Crockett is, like I said, she's not quite as polished. I love her. I'm
Well,
not
she's
so sure she's got the
relatively new to
temperament.
Congress. She hasn't been in Congress as long as AOC.
Right.
There's no question about that. But at this point, like I said before, we don't need politicians. We need street fighters because that's what we're in right now, a street fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this fight's going to happen for the next couple of years. So I understand that Schumer probably won't run in New York. Hopefully, AOC will run. I don't think it's her turn yet to be running for presidency. I don't think she could win. You and I have had this
Not yet.
discussion
Not in
about that. Yeah,
2028. No.
yeah. Hate to say it, it's going to be a white guy who represents us probably. If we need our best chance, we can't lose this one. We just can't.
No.
So, but so it won't be AOC. So let her go into the Senate and do in the Senate what she's been doing in the House of Representatives. But the fight's we need more. There's just an anger among the blue people, and every centrist is a target right now. Everybody that it just wants status quo. They need to go. They just need to go. And the neoliberalism is now should be a dead policy. Never was a great policy to begin with. They just always wanted to run that because they figure, well, we can bring in some Republicans in this and some conservatives. Well, we don't have any more conservatives. It's time for the progressives. They have great policies. And it's time to stand up proud and be a progressive and push progressive policies.
Well, we should learn a lesson. When Kamala ran, she hung out with Liz Cheney, hoping to pull some of the Republicans to her. Didn't work. Not one Republican went with the way of Kamala Harris, regardless of who she was hanging out with. So that concept should not be considered because the Republicans are locked in to what they're locked into, and we we just need everybody who's a Democrat to vote. You mentioned the judicial system and the Supreme Court, especially. It was interesting that yesterday John Robert came out. He was speaking someplace, and he was really espousing judicial independence, the fact that the judiciary was equal, co-equal branch of the government, and we have to be careful to not impugn that. This had to be a message to Donald Trump and the people that, all right, we fucking had enough, which is ironic because they created this monster and now they're going, oh shit, we better try to put a stop to this because Donald Trump is going to do exactly what you and I said 2 years ago, that as soon as he gets into a dictatorship, he's going to take away the power from the Supreme Court and the legislature, which is what he's trying to do right now. And they're just getting it now. I don't know how they fucking just get it now. These people are educated, smart people, and two dumb fucks like you and I knew this was going to happen ultimately, but they never saw it.
Yeah, I mean, look, they all they had to do was listen to the vice president and the people around him talking about, let's just ignore the judiciary, and that's the advice that they're giving Donald Trump. Um, and they've pushed this far enough. I mean, they're going into court unprepared, unconcerned, and not paying attention to judicial orders. And Roberts sees this, and if he doesn't push back, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. They're just going to totally ignore the judiciary. They're getting close to that now. And so this fight has to be done by certainly by the justices, but it also has to be done by Congress because Congress has been sidelined. And so we don't have three equal right now. We have basically the executive with Congress inside of it, and they're slowly eating away at the judicial part of it because they're losing court case after court case.
Did you hear this? We talked about Stephen Miller, that creepy motherfucker. Apparently, a legal group founded by White House aide Stephen Miller, that creepy fuck, just sued Chief Justice John Roberts in a brazen but unlikely attempt to seize control of the federal court system. In the lawsuit filed last week, America First Legal argued that the Judicial Conference of the U.S. and the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts, two key judicial branch bodies that frame policy and handle the basic functions of the federal courts, are executive branch agencies. That's a pretty brazen thing. You're going to sue the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Now, Donald Trump has always thought these people are going to side with him. When you start trying to take away control of the Supreme Court and you sue the Chief Justice, they're not going to be friendly next time you need them.
No. That's an absolute power play. I don't know who they think is going to sit in on judgment on that. It's going to be a judge, and they're not going to win. And they just made an enemy out of Roberts. Roberts now is like, get the fuck out of here. No. This is enough. Let's hope. But there are two judges that probably would be fine with this: Alito and Thomas. They're bought and paid for, as far as I can tell, with that. So I don't know. I don't put anything past anything that goes on anymore. But I think Roberts will side with the liberal members, and then a couple more like Amy Barrett and maybe Kavanaugh, and they're going to say enough's enough. I think you're right.
Well, don't you think Alito and Clarence Thomas in the next couple of years are going to retire so Donald Trump can appoint two new Supreme Court justices? I do. I think that's what the intention is.
I do. I think they're going to want to get him out of here before Trump leaves. And the problem is, it's not just Trump talking to them; it's all their rich buddies, who they hang around with, that are going to say, "You need to retire. We'll take care of you in retirement." Thomas, you don't have to worry about anything. Alito's the same way. And yes, he'll appoint two younger people. Hopefully, he finds. I don't even know where those names are going to come from. I just hope they're not crazy.
Oh, they're
Barrett
going to
has
come
been,
from the federal. They're going to come from the Federalist group because that's
yeah,
who determines.
but Barrett's been a little bit of a surprise. She's
Yeah.
conservative, but she's been more like Judge Stevens. And the longer she sits on the court, and the more that she sees, and the more experience she gets, she's starting to slowly shift leftward.
Well, I think Amy Comey Barrett uh, realizes a couple of things. She is a far right, religious right freak, maybe part of a cult, but she has a shred of integrity, and she knows she's what she in her 40s right now. She
Yeah.
knows she's going to have to be there a while, and she needs the Supreme Court to be intact so she continue to do her job. So she's probably going the other way because of what's coming in there is so absolutely ridiculous. Alito and Clarence Thomas don't care. All Clarence Thomas has to do is when he retires, that his billionaire buddies at least gets him a 89 Winnebago and a spot at a Walmart with a plug-in, and he's good.
Yeah, to be honest, when they retire, and hopefully we get the kind of administration we've been asking for. I hope they get investigated. You know,
Oh yeah,
I hope they
no
get
question.
investigated. I would love to see Thomas taken away in handcuffs for being the corrupt guy he is. The Roberts Court has been a complete failure. It's been a
No question.
disgrace and it's been a failure, and that's how our history is going to record it. And it's going to be the Roberts Court. It's not going to be the Thomas Court. And so he should be ashamed of himself for letting things get to where they are. I don't know if those guys feel shame, but I mean, how do you explain to your kids that you had people taking trips from millionaires? They were on your court, and then you didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, the legacies won't be good. Now, yeah, we were talking about Donald Trump and when the Republicans will have had enough of him and maybe even impeach him. I still think that's a distinct possibility. The Republicans get to the point where they see the end is near, and if they don't do something with Donald Trump, they are out of it completely in terms of the 2026 election. Donald Trump was being interviewed, and Donald Trump was asked about whether or not he would uphold the Constitution with regards to deportations and immigration and such. And he says, I don't know. I don't know if I will. Now, he very specifically took an oath when he was inaugurated as president where he would protect the Constitution. Now, he clearly stated in that interview that he will not protect the Constitution. So he's in violation of his oath. That should be enough for anybody, Republican or Democrat, to say, okay, he violated the oath. He's got to go. But even still, the Republicans are trying to explain it away. Well, what he meant was. I love how they always have to explain to us what Donald Trump really meant. Apparently, Donald Trump isn't capable of saying what he fucking means.
Oh no, listen, they're complete cowardice. They're in violation of their own oaths because they take an oath to protect the Constitution, and
Absolutely.
they're not. And the only thing that we can hope for is that his poll numbers, which are already abysmal, continue, and they will plummet because economics are everything, right? A family's economics are everything, and they're about to go into the shitter, and his poll numbers are going to follow right along with people's 401ks and with the price of goods being so high. So, once they go low enough, I think you're already starting to see a little bit of pushback now. I mean, like you said, we talked about earlier about the big bill. The big bill might be dead because the moderates don't appear to be afraid of him. When you get 10 to 15 moderates that were afraid of him, that all of a sudden are standing up, when you get Marjorie Taylor Greene saying she represents the base and she puts a tongue lashing on on the Trump administration, I don't know if they're done. I mean, to be honest with you, so there's a lot to be hopeful for. It does look like momentum is starting to go against them and towards our side now, and I'm probably the most hopeful I've been in the last couple months, to be honest. As we sit here today, and everything feels like it's going against the Trump administration. He can still do a lot of damage. We're still going to be, in bad shape over the next 4 or 5 months. But I do think that there's only so much he can do, and that politics is like gravity. It exists, and so like gravity, there's a natural order of things, and he has so violated the natural order for so long. It's going to come back to haunt him.
I think he's kind of blown his wad here because I think he can do some more damage, but I think the worst is over. He's a weaker guy than when he took the presidency because he's made a fool of himself. He's made mistakes. And as I've always said, the one thing you can count on with Donald Trump, he will fuck up. And
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
continually tries to fuck up.
Yeah, always. Every day is a different fuck up. That's why we can't stay. It's hard when we do these podcasts because there's so much. And unless you and I sit there and make a list of today's fuck ups, all we can do is try to concentrate on the big ones. But there's 100 other little small ones that he's fucked up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think things are looking good. It's just what I guess is frustrating is we have to wait such a long time to make the change, right? The 26 elections are a long ways away. And
Right.
that'll be our
Well,
first opportunity to do anything.
well, unless when this stuff with the tariffs hits, it gets so bad and people are so upset, that's maybe where the Republicans go. We got to separate ourselves from this. I mean, I think the Republicans have to do something before the midterm elections because they're fucked if they don't. They're fucked anyway, but they got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, well, their problem is there's 30% of their base is pure MAGA. They believe every
Yeah.
single word. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's 30% in their own districts. And so if they're going to get primaried. A bunch of them are going to get primaried, and they don't have the guts to stand up and say this is bad policy. But they need to. I mean, if they don't want to go, they're going to be in bad shape in the generals. So yeah, all right, they get primary by a MAGA guy, then they still end up losing the election. But things are not. I mean, they need to start standing up, telling the truth, take away tariffs away from the executive, and start making sense of the tariff situation. He can recommend a tariff, and they either do it or they don't. But they probably should just blanket remove all tariffs that he's created in the last month and a half, since Liberty Day, and then go from there because their jobs are on the line.
Yeah.
And he can threaten to primary him, but like the money from Musk is not there now. I mean, I think Musk is on the outs with Trump, so I
Yeah.
don't
No
know that he's
question.
going to. I don't think he's going to put millions of dollars into particular races. And then, like I said, when you get Marjorie Taylor Greene criticizing you, something is definitely wrong
Well,
in
and
Hooterville.
it makes no sense for Elon Musk to put any money into anything because he's got such a bad brand now. We saw what happened in Wisconsin. Go ahead, put a couple 100 million into another one, and you'll lose because you're tied to Elon Musk. Nobody's going to want Elon Musk money at this point because
Yeah, yeah,
it's proven to be a failure. Um, uh, Donald Trump said something. Well, I wanted to ask one other thing. You were talking about primaries. David Hogg, who is
right.
who's a Democrat. He was part of when he was younger. He was in a mass shooting, and he's come to prominence, and he's a Democrat. And now he's talking about primarying Democrats that don't do anything.
That's
And
right.
the establishment Democrats are not happy about this because these are some people that might be safe in their districts, and why ruffle the feathers of voters by primarying somebody if they can win easily. So those Democrats are worried about just winning the seats. David Hogg and the people following him want to maintain the Democratic control, but get somebody maybe younger who's willing to do something as opposed to what some of these other bumps on the log are doing. And the Democrats don't like this. This is causing kind of a division in the Democratic Party. What are your thoughts about what Hogg is suggesting?
I'm all for Hogg. Um,
I am
I
too.
think I think he's being stifled by the DNC. They've told him you have to be neutral. I remains to be seen. I haven't heard anything recently if he's going to be neutral. I think trying to keep somebody in their seat that's not doing anything in Congress is just ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think, but he has like I think $20 million. He spread $20 million over, 100 plus representatives. It doesn't go very far.
No.
So no, but I think he should continue. I think they should primary the least effective members, and too bad what the DNC and the centrists want. And I think that seems to be the consensus, not only amongst the progressives, but frankly, the whole base is tired of the bullshit. And so, who's our leader in the House?
Hakeem
Oh,
Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries came out and said, I no, we're going to try to keep every person we got in here." Now, that just that didn't help him, to be honest with you.
No. No, I think Hakeem Jeffries has some problems with what's going on here. Looks like it looks like you locked up there for a second, but no, I think
Yeah.
Hakeem Jeffries has some problems too. He needs to rehabilitate himself.
Yeah, no, he does. He's not Schumer, but he's not
Yeah,
he's not AOC either, and he should let the primary system just go. If you want to keep your seat, fight for your seat. If you don't, and if somebody else takes their place, I don't know that we're getting any leftist wingnuts. I mean, I'm sure there are a few, but we're not.
yeah,
We're not. I don't. I the more progressives that are in there, the better off we'll be because they'll change the centrist, hold that's been there since Clinton was there. Um,
yeah.
we're long past time of going past that and starting to fight, just like AOC and Bernie are doing. They have the right of it. We need the message better. If we have a congressman who can't message or won't message, then fuck them. They're out, as far as I'm concerned. But
And
that's going to be the districts to do.
whether you like the far left or not, I almost feel like in order we're so far right now in Congress and in the presidency, we almost have to overcorrect to get it back to the middle. And I always liken it to being in Minnesota when you're on the roads and it's icy and you start going off in the right ditch. You got to crank it all the way left to get back to the center. And you may have to go left and a little center, and it takes a little bit to find the sweet spot. But it's just a matter if we can get the people, the voters behind going a little farther left than maybe they're comfortable with.
Yeah, we can't. That's been our problem. The Democrats have been conservative light. Yeah,
Yeah.
we believe in immigration. Yeah, we're not going to do anything about your guns. And yeah, maybe abortion is not such a great idea. Bullshit. Come on now. And so we can't win by being Republican or conservative right. And so we need to make. I think we need to make a clean break with the party and stand up for the real values that most of us endorse. And those are strong progressive ideas. And we can't fight for like we trans rights are definitely trans rights, but I don't know that we can put trans rights in place of people's economics. We have to win. And once we win, then we can defend trans rights once we're in power. So we need to be smart about that. I don't know. Poor Kamala, I think, was almost she was shattered by them beating her up over trans rights. And I don't
You know,
remember her really speaking about it much.
no, no. And the thing about it is um, trans rights. We're talking about a small percentage of people in this country. My point is that we shouldn't be talking about trans rights. We should be talking about rights for everybody in this country,
That's right.
whether you're
That's right.
trans or heterosexual, black or white or Native American or whatever you are. You don't have to focus on trans rights. Just give everybody the rights that were given to them by the Constitution. It doesn't
Yeah.
say if you're trans or you're black, you don't get rights. It doesn't say that. And if you're going to be a constitutional originalist, well, fuck. Everybody
Yeah.
gets
Listen,
rights.
if you're a human being, you should deserve rights. I've been to a few drag shows in my time. They're great, and the people are nice, and they deserve the rights. They deserve to be married. They deserve to, if they want to join the military. But maybe the military doesn't pay for conversion. I
Well,
get
no, but
that. It's a cost. If you want conversion, then you're going to pay for it for yourself. So sports, that that shouldn't even be a national issue. That should be a district level issue, or at
yeah.
best, it shouldn't even be a state level issue, because how many trans kids try out for the football team, or try out for girls volleyball? One, two, in a state, or five. It's not much. It's not an issue. They beat us. They beat us over the head with these small issues, and they're letting, and so we're losing culture wars we shouldn't even be involved in. We should be talking about the economy. We should be talking about human rights. We should be talking about defense. We should be talking about the things that people need. Healthcare for sure, um, and we need distinct, clear messages on maybe three or four things that we stand for. But we shouldn't cover a gamut of stuff, because the message gets lost when we're trying to talk about 200 different things.
Absolutely. We're coming to the end. I wanted to ask about one thing, and this is going to require you to make a prediction.
Okay.
Donald Trump at his press conference with Mark Carney, he couldn't stop talking. He just rattled on and rattled on. It didn't say much. He looked pretty foolish doing it. But he said, I got a big announcement coming out Thursday or Friday or Monday before I go to Saudi Arabia or wherever he's going. I got this big announcement, and it's going to be a good announcement. I'd tell you if it was a bad announcement, but I can't tell you what it is right now. What was your take on him saying that?
Um, when he says stuff like that, you don't listen until he actually makes the announcement,
Right.
because it isn't always good. Now, since then, we've learned that the announcement is that he's going to change the price of drugs to match what's paid in other countries. So, if that's the case, if that's what it is, that's a
That's
good thing.
cool.
I mean, it's a good thing. It's going to pit him against the farm, because he tried to do that in his first term, and the pharmaceutical companies beat him. So maybe this time he wins. And they're going to say the same shit that they always say. Well, this is going to affect us putting new drugs on the market. That's fucking bullshit. They got such huge profits. They'll continue to do research and continue to put drugs on the market. They're going to need to, because they have to get patents. If they don't get patents, eventually then the drugs run out of patent and we get a generic. So they're going to need to continue to do research into this stuff. I hope he does that. Him announcing it doesn't mean a damn thing to me. I mean, it might mean something to a MAGA person, but it doesn't mean anything to anybody else.
Well, I tell you what, if he does announce that, that's cool. But keep in mind, we've got a large chunk of fucking pharmaceuticals from China. So cutting the prices on pharmaceuticals is only so good. And this is part and parcel of what Donald Trump does. Things are going to shit, so he needs a distraction, a diversion.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
right.
I would suggest that if he says he's going to bring down the prices of pharmaceuticals, he's going to say it, but he'll never get around to doing it. That's
No,
what I
no, you're
think.
right. You're right.
And I want you to remember one other thing. He said this before. He said, "Oh, I got big news. I got big news. Just wait. I'm going to tell you this big news." You remember what that big news was? That big news
Um,
was that he was coming up with NFTs with his face on them. That was his big news. So I don't have a lot of hope for Donald Trump doing any
no,
good for this
no,
country.
no. You remember infrastructure? We're going to do
Yeah.
infrastructure, right? That never,
2
never
weeks.
happened. Yeah, never happened. Yeah, we're working on the plan. Never happened. So yeah, he can announce this. It's a good thing. It should have happened a long time ago. It should have happened under Biden. But the pharmaceutical companies have done too much lobbying. They have too much money invested in Congress, both Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And he's got such a scattered brain that he can't hold on focus on any one issue at any time. He'll go from that to then being pissed off that people didn't go, certain stars didn't show up for Les Mis when he went down to the Kennedy Center and stuff like that.
I heard
So
that.
now
Some are protesting, boycotting.
yeah. So he's going to make, he'll start attacking the Kennedy Center, and we're never going to see it. So he'll make that announcement. It won't mean a fucking thing. I almost think he needs Congress to do anything about it. I'm not sure, but I almost think he does.
No,
You
I
know,
think
I
you do it. And you've got a lot of
yeah,
rich pharmaceutical companies putting money in Congress people's pockets. So whether he'll get
yeah.
it accomplished or not, I don't know.
I mean, look, he got Joe Biden had $25 insulin, right? And what was one of the very first orders was to get rid of that. So now insulin is back up to whatever price it was. The pharmaceutical companies didn't keep it at $25. They went right back up. And it's a shame because we have them under a barrel because of Medicare and Medicaid. We can set prices if we wanted to, and they can either
Right.
join us or not. But we could set the prices. But they got too many people bought and paid for it, and I think Trump is not going to get shit done on this. So I don't hold out any hope on that either. I think we were going to talk one last thing about. I know we're coming near the end about Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah, yeah.
So, she came to Washington to discuss putting a couple squadrons, I believe, to replace the A-10 squadrons that are in Michigan, because the A-10s are ground support aircraft. They're going to go away. They're old. They're going to go away. The Air Force has been trying to get rid of them for a long time, and so they're going to put something called an F-15 Strike Eagle, which is not the latest generation, but can carry a shitload of ordnance and do what the A-10 did as far as supporting ground troops. Anyway, she goes to Washington. She goes to the Oval Office, and they're holding a press conference for them signing an executive order, and I think it had to do with immigration. So she gets caught up in that press conference, and Time magazine, I believe it was Time, gets a picture of her hiding behind a folder. Do I have the story right so far?
Yes, you do.
All right,
Yeah.
right. So she gets freaking beat up pretty bad about that. So then Trump comes out to Michigan, and I think again this has to do with the air. Oh yeah, he comes out to Michigan to make the announcements about the air bases, and that yes, they're going to expand. They're going to put the F-15s there, and in replace the A-10s. And once again, she meets him on the tarmac. He goes to hug her. She doesn't quite go in for the hug. So what's the issue? The issue is she was a front runner um, to
Or VP.
be no, not a VP, to run for office of presidency in
True,
28.
true.
So my question to you, Mike, is what do you think your chances are now?
Well, it depends on how things go over the next 3 years. But I will tell you the big mistake that anybody makes on the Democratic side or in the media side, like Gavin Newsom talking to Charlie, whatever the fuck his name is. Um, the mistake you make if you, or even Obama, laughing with Donald Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, if you're sitting next to Trump or some of the other Trump fucks, but specifically Trump, and you seem to be cordial with him or at least friendly to him, you're going to get crucified. You're going to get canceled. Now, if Gavin Newsom would have sat in there in his podcast and went after this clown, or Gretchen Whitmer decided not to go to something, she would have done much better. I mean, they're caught in a situation with politics as usual, and we just had to be friendly and decent and decorum. What they fail to understand is that's gone. If you're not fighting Donald Trump, the Democrats hate you. If you're being friendly to Donald Trump in any way, even if it's fake, they're going to hate you. So people have to understand that. If you're going to go be around Donald Trump and you're a Democrat, you better be ready to call him a motherfucker. Otherwise, they're going to hate you.
Yeah, I saw her on heard her on a podcast with, I think it was with Miller from Bulwark. Anyway, she said that she left. I mean, she did not stay there. I mean, she walked out on that and chewed on her I guess her aide to put her in that position. That's what she says.
Yeah.
But and then the discussion has been her and Gavin Newsom are both governors, and this shouldn't be a disqualifier that they are doing something for their states. whatever, however distasteful it is, and this shouldn't affect that. And people can, and they have enough time to recover. I'm with you on this one. I don't, I don't think it's recoverable. Her big thing might be that she can talk to all parties because right now she doesn't have full control of Michigan. So she works with Democrats and Republicans for the best interests of Michigan. But there's such a thing as good political sense. And number one, she could have walked out of the Oval Office, walked down and got behind a bank of microphones that are always there and said, "This is what happened." Instead, she slunk out of the White House, and she could have done this in Michigan as well. And I think both her and Newsom, I think they're done. They wouldn't get my vote because she's not adept or quick enough on her feet to be able to handle a sudden situation like that. It was a terrible situation politically. She should have understood that was it, and she should have done something right there and then to mitigate the damage, and she didn't. And so there are other people coming up that I think Walz, Pritzker, what's his name in Maryland? You like him in Maryland?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Westmore.
And I think they would have handled those situations
Oh, I do
faster and
too.
better. Yeah, and totally in a totally different manner. So, I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know who listens to this podcast, but I do think that we as Blue, we need to take a unified position on agreeing what are the parameters of the next candidates that we want for the House of Representatives, for the Senate, even locally, and decide that if they don't stay within these parameters, that there's really zero tolerance for mistakes and that this is a war. It's that bad. And in a warfare that if you are sort of meek and weak, you're going to go. And this just ties into our earlier discussion and I think she finished her chances for being, I don't even think she'll be selected as the vice president. So for whoever wins this, I don't think she'll be selected. That's how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, they're trying to deal with politics as usual, and that's not the case anymore. Like I said, this isn't politics. It's a fucking street fight. If you're not a street fighter, if you're going to play nice, people aren't going to like you because we've
Yeah.
been fighting this for 10 years and people have been weak, like Schumer and other people in the Democratic Party. They aren't going to be thought of very strongly if they didn't fight against what turns out to be the worst president in history who's doing some horrible damage. It's not like Gretchen Whitmer and Donald Trump just disagree on politics. Donald Trump is trying to destroy the country, and if you show him any favor, you're considered weak. That may be fair, it may be unfair, but that's just the fucking way it is.
Right. I mean, sacrifice jobs. I mean, you either have values or you don't have values, and it's too important right now not to have the strong values and understand the moment that we're in. And she obviously doesn't understand the moment, and so she's going to stay a governor. God bless her, but she's not going to be at least I hope she's not my president because she's not strong enough. And we move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
This is just no time not to fight, and we need as much fight. I see you and I have talked about Blue Sky, and now I'm close to 19,000 followers from the
Wow.
last time I spoke to you. So I think at 18.7 now. So little by little over 2 or 3 months. But the most popular posts I make are the fighting posts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they understand the politics in the moment. So I posted something about Marjorie Taylor Greene probably has a possibility of being the Republican candidate for senator in Georgia. And
I hope
by the
so.
way, Ossoff is kicking her ass. And it didn't go viral, but it was a fair number of likes and likes for that particular post. All of those. Me posting my pets, I might get a couple hundred likes, but that's about that's about it.
Yeah.
whereas I'll get a couple thousand for anything that's political. So there's a hunger to fight. There's a hunger for information. We just have to make sure that we continue to push. We don't. I don't. I don't think we should make people angry where they're anxious all the time. I think that's what Fox News does. They get their people so riled up that they're anxious. But we need to make sure that they use their critical thinking to analyze the situation and come up and say, okay, this is what I'm willing to do. This is how I think, and this is who I'm going to support.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to wrap things up, but tell folks where they can find you online, TikTok, Blue Sky.
Oh
Tell
yeah,
them how they
yeah.
can find you.
So if you're into lightsabers, I run a lightsaber school in Aiken, South Carolina, and I'm known as commander there. And so it's a fighting school. I'm tied into that, and we're on Facebook. So look up Aiken Saber Academy. That's where I'm at. On Blue Sky, I'm sort of new to Blue Sky, but I love posting and getting information from all sorts of sources: TikTok, Substack, Facebook, news, and posting. And I've been pretty successful in quick order. I'm up to almost 19,000 followers. So my thing is, I probably will never get to 100,000, but if I can get up 25 or 30 or 35,000, I'll be happy. That means that's 35,000 people that I'm influencing. So you'll find me under T-Night02 at bluesky.com. So T-Night02 at Blue Sky. I hope you all can join us. And I post a lot of different, it's not all politics. I do post whatever I think is funny. So, if there's a dachshund herding cattle, since I have a dachshund, I'll post about that. So it's animals, it's kids, it's politics, it's whatever. It's science if I can find it and keep it under 3 minutes. A lot of videos from different sources. So that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. And just to give you an indication, I'm on Blue Sky too. I have 6,500 followers, so you're doing really well.
Thank
And,
you.
um, I just want to thank you for coming on. It's always good to talk to you. People look forward to hearing from you. You have great insight. You're an old man like me, so we have experience to take from. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. You're
Uh,
welcome
it's always
anytime.
it's always a pleasure being here. Always. This time I came on because a couple people from Blue Sky said, "Hey, when are you going to appear on Rational Boomer again? We miss you."
Anytime you like. Anytime you like is fine. Those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.